Morning, everyone.
Hello, Masutane.
Hi, Martin.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And how are you?
I'm okay as well.
Very well, thank you. Percival, are you by any chance Ricardo? I'm just
No, I actually just joined this coincidentally because I recognized Mr. Moliki on someone's status today.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. I mistook you for somebody else because of yeah, the last name. That's fine then.
All right.
All right, so we will start at 10.
Is Gilbert here?
Not
already?
yet.
Okay. Hi, Mashudu.
Martin,
Hi, Gilbert.
how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm all right, man. How is the coffee?
It's brilliant. It's what I needed.
You see?
So Masutane was just here looking for you, actually.
Who is this?
I'm saying Masutane, she was just looking for you just now.
Oh, it's a lady. I thought it was a male.
Oh, it's a lady.
Okay,
Very wonderful.
I'm here. If
Okay.
Tell her that I'm here.
I'll tell her. We're waiting for 2 more people.
No, that's okay. I started time. It's okay. Huh? Let's go. Okay. I'm okay.
Good morning. Good morning, Jemwa.
Good morning, Mr. Malango. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Jemwa. You are
You're
muted.
on mute.
You are muted, Jemwa.
Morning, everybody.
Yes, Lauren, morning.
Lauren.
Is that Martin? Martin, morning.
Good morning, Mr. Malango.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. You were muted.
Yes, how are you doing?
Jemwa, do you live in Windhoek or have you relocated? I hardly see you here.
Because you're hiding, old man.
Or you are avoiding me.
No, I don't. When I hunt for you, I don't find you. I only find you already.
I hunt for you. Okay. Okay. I see we are 11 participants. So how many people are expected to be on this platform?
We
100
are,
people, 200 people?
we are currently on the list of participants. We are waiting for 2 people. We are waiting for the president of the Women in Mining, Namibia, and we are also waiting for our moderator, Mr. Ricardo.
Yeah, okay.
So, but
will we be, okay, while we are waiting, will we be able to see how many people there are and who is on the platform? How is this? What is the arrangement?
So the panelists you won't be able to see, but I will be able to see. So
Okay.
they are seeing you. There's already attendees in the lobby, so they will be able to see you and hear you, and they will
Okay,
have
no
opportunities to ask questions. Yes.
Okay. So
But you
right
won't
now,
be able to see them.
how many people have joined in right now?
Right now we have 7, and yeah. So, but like
Okay.
we had like 28 RSVPs.
Okay.
They're
Will you
supposed to-
enable us to share any documentation or slides for discussion?
Yes, you should be able to see at the bottom panel.
Okay.
There should be a green share screen
Yeah.
option. Yes.
It's here. It's fine.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Okay. Sorry, I cannot see your face. I'm seeing your logo.
I'm not a participant, but I'm
And you're
just
talking
like
to
the
who?
technical, your technical guide, Masutani. And
And
here,
we are talking to who?
Masutani
Oh,
Mojaji.
yes, now we can see you. Yeah, it's much better. This thing of you are talking to people are hiding behind, I don't know what. The new normal.
It's the new normal.
Corona.
Okay. Very good, very good. Yes, I think I dropped you an email just now. Some
Yes.
10 minutes after that
Yes.
we were able to share there.
Yes.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, since we are waiting for people, as Southern Africa Resources Watch, in which countries are you represented in Africa?
In the SADC region. So we have offices in Zimbabwe, Zambia, DRC, and we have a virtual office in Mozambique.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Ricardo is on the floor. Ricardo, morning. You are muted. You are muted.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Now we can hear you, yes.
100%.
Yeah.
How's it going? You well?
No, fine, thanks. We're well. Yeah, morning. You're good.
I'm good. Ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Very good.
All right, is everyone joining us? Do we have...
Apparently, we were waiting for you and then for Zenzi.
For Zenzi. Okay, I see.
Zenzi. Yeah,
all right, Gilbert is here.
Then we are
Martin
ready to go.
here. All right, now then we are ready to go.
Do you mind if I log in again? Do you mind if I log in again? I think.
No, please do.
Okay, please.
Please do while we're waiting for Zenzi as well.
Okay, sure. Okay.
All right. Okay, that should be in order. Just double checking something here before we start.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see Masutane here online.
Oh,
Masutane probably under the
under the banner there. She's
Yes, that
hiding
is
behind
me.
there.
Yes, that is
I
me. I'm
see.
just
All right.
quickly going to check on Zenzi again, but she should be joining us any minute now.
No worries. Okay. Attendees. Okay, good morning also to the attendees that are joining us. I understand there will be a few more numbers as we proceed. Hopefully it's not going to be too much of an African time situation. So.
But Ricardo, apparently the arrangement is such that the rest of the audience, we won't see them, we don't know them.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
So it's basically ourselves on the panel, just Zenzi coming in, then we are ready to roll.
Then we're ready to go. Okay, I see Gilbert. We've also lost Gilbert now. I'm pretty sure maybe he's trying to log in again.
He's trying to log in again, I guess. Yeah. And my colleague, Lauren, is here.
Okay. Let me just change this as well.
Did I see a program, or am I missing something?
Yeah, there's yes, we have a program arrangement in terms of who will speak first and so on.
That is what I'm missing.
Oh, that is what you're missing. Okay, let me just see. I'm sure Masutana can share that with you. In the email that was sent to us, yes, I think it was also included in that email.
Somehow.
Let me just see. Okay, no.
Right here. I don't think.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, okay. This is 8 minutes past. We are getting late. Those that have logged in, they walk away.
I think our host was our moderator was disconnected, so he should be joining us. Yeah, Gilbert.
Okay.
Ricardo.
Yeah.
My apologies for this.
I think
Yes.
shouldn't we maybe begin 2 minutes?
Masutana, can you just share with me the program? I don't think that I got. Just the program.
Myself as well, please.
Yeah. Masutana, did you get that?
Did you receive it?
Still waiting.
Still waiting.
I'm sharing it with you now, but
Okay.
yeah.
And I think better announce the audience that will be rolling in the next 2 minutes. Otherwise, people log off and go.
Otherwise, we lose them. Yeah. Otherwise, we lose them. Okay, I think we need to commence.
Yeah.
I think we need to commence.
It's 10 minutes after already. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10 minutes after. Yeah, so we don't want to lose the audience there as well. All right. So once again, a very good morning to everybody. Thank you for making time to join us. Now, my name is Ricardo Knagosep. I'm basically a broadcasting journalist and a TV personality. I don't like to use that one, but most of the time they put that in on the program. I'll be moderating the session for this morning. In the next, I think, hour and 20 minutes, we are going to be looking at it, and I think, and having a discussion which is important generally, I think, also for our national development. It's something which we've been talking about for quite some time, and I'm glad that the Southern African Resource Watch has, in fact, reached out to me to moderate this, because I'm also quite passionate about the extractive industry. Now, the Southern African Research Watch works for participatory, transparent, and accountable utilization of extractive resources, basically in a manner that optimizes transformative social and economic benefits, and basically for intergenerational equity. As we all know what intergenerational equity stands for, the fact that we want to make sure that once we have used these resources over the next couple of years while we are alive, we leave the environment and, of course, the resources also in a state that will be able to benefit future generations as well. Now, of course, looking at that also within the context of environmental and human rights impact. Now, the mandate is of the organization is to monitor corporate state conduct, the relationship between the two in the extraction and beneficiation of natural resources in Southern Africa, and also assess to what extent these activities uplift the economic conditions of the region's communities. Now, the discussions follow the publication of a report in January titled "The Mineral Sector of Namibia, a nuanced overview of selected key aspects." Now, the publication in overview of Namibia's mineral sector in an effort to sort of promote transparent and participation, accountability, gender inclusivity, as well as environmental sensitive management of our natural resources. So that's the purpose of the conversation that we're having this morning. Just a quick look at the program for those of you that just joined us. Of course, after this short introduction, our first speaker will speak for about 10 minutes uninterrupted. Mr. Martin Musweyu, giving us the background of the research, methodology employed, sample size, etc., what were the primary sources, what were the secondary sources, and why it was important to, in fact, even have this study commission in the first place. After that, we'll be joined by the Chamber of Mines Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Weston Malangu, talk to us about, of course, the response from the side of the Chamber, what they think about the report itself, and what is the Chamber's position on some of the key findings of the report. After that, we'll of course also give a few minutes to the Economist of the Chamber of Mines, Mr. Lauren Davison. Of course, we know that there's quite a huge investments that a lot of the international mining companies put into the operations, not only in Namibia, but across the continent. And it's always important to also have the economic perspective of some of these findings as well. That'll be followed by Ms. Zenzin Abasis, geologist and president of Women in Mining Association of Namibia. She will speak about women in mining, the challenges they face, and of course also what could be done to preserve their presence going forward as well. Quite some startling numbers that you're going to see in terms of employment, and I think very, very serious concerns that we have in the areas of executive management and the involvement of women in that part of the business. And after that, we'll have Mr. Gilbert Jamwa, a geologist and co-author of the research, and he'll discuss the key recommendations of the report, and of course, what the way forward is for this as well. Of course, the industry is quite big, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to cover everything in the next hour and 15 minutes that we have, but we'll give you at the end, as the participants, a chance to ask some questions, and the panelists will, of course, also present some recommendations there as well. So without wasting any time, let me please call in Mr. Martin Musweyu to give us the background of the research and why it is important to, of course, conduct this research in the first place. Mr. Musweyu? Mr. Musweyu, we can't hear you.
It's muted.
Muted.
Yeah, it's muted.
Good morning, I think, to everyone that has joined us on this day. Thank you so much for taking out the time to be with us today as we engage on some of the findings of this report. I'll shortly share my screen with so that we are able to see the presentation I have prepared. There we go. Okay. So the research in itself was concerned with the mineral governance of the Namibia mining sector. Essentially, what prompted us as SARW to undertake this research was we were aware of how there's very little research that has been written over about how mineral governance is done in Namibia. And we felt that Namibia as one of the very rich mineral resource countries in the Southern African region, it was good to delve into the industry and analyze how the laws, especially the laws, the taxation regime, the environmental impact assessment, and how the sector in general is benefiting the people of Namibia. The study focused on the key aspects that we speak about as the legislative framework. So the legislative framework is the laws and policies that are in place and that are in place and are governing the sector. Essentially, with the legislative framework would be looking at all the laws that, like the Diamonds Act, that govern and regulate the sector. So in us looking at the legislative framework, essentially it was to see whether this framework in place is achieving the goals and purpose of the Namibia's Vision 2030. Furthermore, the other aspect that we considered to be critical was contract negotiation, and a focus more on transparency. Contract negotiation essentially on how governments negotiate mining contracts with mining corporation. I think we chose this aspect considering how there's very little transparency in the sector in terms of how mining contracts are concluded. And I think through following trends through Africa, we as SARW doing this work, we realized that most governments are not really capacitated to actually negotiate into fair mining contracts that will benefit the state and it will benefit its people. So I think we considered how in Namibia the government is going about in negotiating mining contracts, exploration contracts, and how eventually it would issue licensing And then the next aspect that we thought we should look at was to zoom in into what we'd consider key mining companies in Namibia. And in this, we're looking at the social and corporate responsibility of those mining companies and the work that they have done into plowing back into the host communities and the employment and training and upskilling of Namibians, of youth mostly, and women. The other aspect that we thought also was very critical to look at was employment in the mining sector, particularly with a focus on gender, on how women are prioritized in the sector and what inroads have been made to ensure that women are able to meaningfully participate in the sector. And then the other key issue was the mining taxation regime, with a focus on illicit financial flows and tax evasion and avoidance. I think this, without a doubt, the taxation of the mining industry in every country is a case of concern. It's a case of concern on how governments are able to collect the maximum revenues to ensure that they are able to invest these revenues towards the social upliftment of the country. And I think the taxation regime always of any country is quite a very complicated aspect of mining, due to things like as price volatility, resource booms and whatnot. So and the inherent risky nature of mining in itself. So I think we thought also that this aspect would be great for us to zoom into it and see how the taxation regime in Namibia is, and whether this taxation regime is able to achieve its purpose and objective of collecting the maximum profits from mining companies. And then the next aspect that we considered was the environmental impact of mining operations. Without a doubt, mining has a very destructive footprint on the environment. So zooming into seeing how companies are conducting the environmental impact assessments and issues, this issue also touches on mining rehabilitation, whether mining companies are setting out funds to ensure that the rehabilitations of mines happens once the mining operations have ceased. And also what we didn't go further into this aspect, but we would have also the issues of environment, climate change, how mining companies are gearing up to ensure that they also contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptations, and how they're upscaling their operations and technology to ensure that they meet SARW's commitments towards curbing climate change. We further looked at the relationship between mining companies, government, and communities. This is to just assess how the power dynamic is, which in most cases has really been skewed. Communities have very little voice and contribution into mining operations, and at times very little say. The two centers of power is mostly government and mining firms. So we wanted to see how this relationship is, and also look at how we could amplify the voices of mining communities to ensure that they are also taken as a very key and critical stakeholder in mining operations. And I think in general, we wanted to just see also how the government, the ministries, the different ministries interconnected, are managing the sector, are able to manage the sector successfully, and where there are teething issues and gaps, we will make recommendations that I think Gilbert will speak more to on the findings of the research. And then the methodology that we employed to undertake this research was, I think a lot of it was guided by the current prevailing conditions. So we thought it would be best for now that the study must follow a mixed methods approach that must leverage on existing secondary data in the issue. And then we furthermore tried to have in-person interviews with people that we considered key stakeholders in the mining value chain, as to just get a sense of what is in fact happening on the ground. We have made several findings in terms of what the gaps that we have identified in the legislative framework, especially in terms of when the issues of mining rehabilitations are not really properly addressed. Are not really properly addressed, and I think there's not been, furthermore, in terms of the Diamond Act and the company NAMAD that was created by the Diamond Commissioner to ensure that there's proper regulation of the diamond sector, and that diamond is manufactured and it's refined in Namibia, to ensure that it best benefit the process from diamond production and manufacturing captured in Namibia. We've also felt like there's not been like really an update of how that has transpired. The Minerals Development Fund, obviously, also as one of the, I think, a very progressive idea that we saw, that if run properly, it would transform the nature of the Namibia mining industry, and would give local benefication to communities, and could be used to empower youth and women to critically participate in. It could open opportunities for them to equally participate in the sector. I think for now I'll just limit it there, because I think Gilbert will speak more to some of the other key findings that we discovered, where things that could be taken up a bit further, whether with more research, with more future research, and we hope, I think, with the entire research that we have produced, that I think some of the issues that we raised could be taken up a bit further at either ministerial level, to see how the legislative gaps that we speak of could be addressed and remedied. And I think also for further collaborative research in terms of seeing what other aspects. I think the mining sector is not only the only sector that we think is worth looking at. I think the oil and gas and exploration also in Namibia would also be one key area that I think we should also zoom into and see how we are able to provide reform there, and to close the legislative gaps that exist in that aspect.
Well, thank you very much, Martin, for just setting the pace there and just informing us in terms of the basis of the research and why it was important to do this. I think generally, of course, just looking at that introduction and what you have mentioned there, these are issues that have been plaguing us, particularly the issue around rehabilitations of mines is a serious concern, because there are quite a number of them that haven't been rehabilitated. And of course, there are outcomes from there as well, in as far as economics is concerned, environmental sustainability and so on, and a number of issues that come from there. But let's hear from the Chief Executive Officer of the Chambers of Mines here in Namibia. Of course, they are the premier voice of mining in the country, and they are the ones that hold the relationship between government as the natural owners of constitutionally of the natural resources and the companies that are operating in the country. Mr. Weston Malango. Mr. Malango, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. No, thank you very much for this opportunity to interact with everybody on this key topic. Obviously, the extractive industry is a sensitive sector. First of all, very important, very key to the economic development and socio-economic development of our country and generally in Africa. And at the same time, very sensitive, and one can appreciate so, because in the first place, the minerals belong to the citizens. So with that, let me just try to, first of all, share what I wanted to discuss with you. share the screen and are you able to see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen now.
Excellent. And if I, is it much better now?
That's much better. There we go.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm saying I think it's important we discuss these matters, and it is a good opportunity. I think I should thank the authors for this effort, because I think at the end of the day, the idea was to raise the debate so that we engage one another. And in that respect, I would have, I see that they're saying the methodology was, part of it was a lot of interviews with key stakeholders. I should take this opportunity to register my disappointment here that I only saw the report when it was done, and I see this was issued in on the 20th of January 2021, so recent. But we were not involved in any consultation process. And I would say, if we as a chamber, we would have very much wanted, it would have been great to engage the authors and to put a lot of things into perspective that they have raised in the report. In my opinion, that's a shared position of the chamber. We would have had a very much more comprehensive and much more informative discussion paper as it is right now. But be as it may be, I think let me share with you from my side a few things that I've raised. I mean, look, it's all about governance because everybody wonders, this is a key sector, but what happens to our resources? That's a genuine question, and it's our responsibility to respond to that. So I thought, let me share with you a summary of the performance of the industry in the last 5-6 years, by way of a graph, and then we can take it up from there. So I've got some few statistics for you here, and if I may proceed here. Here I'm simply, let me just organize myself here. Yeah, very good. So now, let me just organize myself. So I want to share with you in terms of the industry performance, and I'll start with 2019. This slide here is a summary of everything that we did, a summary of our annual report, which we do every year. And I see they have extensively quoted from this annual report of the Chamber of Mines, which is great. But now this is a summary. And every year, right now, we are working on the 2020 performance. So what we have available is 2019 and all the other years. And by the way, all our reports, annual reports, are available on the Chamber website. So as an example, I'll go into detail, only this one, the rest not, only this one. So 2019, the industry in Namibia, we generated from the sale of all our minerals, we generated 33.5 billion Namibian dollars. And obviously the question arises, where did the money go? You guys generate that kind of money, where does it go? And then with all the suspicions and everything else, which is also in this report, and that's why I'm highlighting on this. So if you look at the breakdown, wages and salaries, 4.8 billion, so close to 5 billion, that's 14% of this. Now, the importance of this, wages or salaries, you're going to see from other slide that in terms of employment, we employ about 97%, over 97% are Namibian citizens, so the locals. So you're talking of less than 3% of employees that we bring in as expatriates. So basically, the 5 billion that we spend on the packages, basically this is money that circulates in the economy. Exploration expenditure, I will not talk much on that, but let's go to governments get a GRN. Government got a dividend of 200 million, pay as you earn 1.1 billion, it's a 4%, export levy 243 million, I think, profits, corporate tax and royalties, that's the main income to government, so about 3.1 billion. And then most important here, dividends to shareholders, about 575 million, 2% of that. Then most important, again, I'm emphasizing this, procurement, local procurement. So all the goods and services that we procure from the local suppliers, we spent in that year 13.4 billion, which is 40% of this, and that's the biggest chunk. And I think we are very proud as the industry here that we are actually indeed promoting the local suppliers of goods and services, and 40% of that went, and this is money that went into the local economy. If you go further, 2.2 billion, which is 7%, this went into local procurement, what we call discretionary, and this is essentially money that we paid to only two utilities, and that is NAM Water and NAM Power. So again, money went to parastatus, 2.2 billion. CSR and others, and at the end of the day, that is all. If you look at this, again, let me see, is this thing frozen or what? What has happened here? Oh, here it is, yes. At the end of the day, government got about 4.8 billion. And then most importantly, you are talking about close to, so over 77 billion, 77%, sorry, over 77% of what we earned, which comes to over 25 billion. This is, or that is money that stayed in the economy. I think that's what I wanted to illustrate. If I go to further on, it's again, another slide from 2018. It will be basically the same picture, but what is important is the local procurement. We are spending almost 40%. In that year, it was 33 billion generated, and you're talking of 40% of that was spent in the local procurement of goods and services, which came to about 13.3 billion. If I go to another year, which is 2017, against the same thing, you see 40% of what we generate went into the local suppliers of goods and services. Again, money staying in the country. And I can go on and on. 2016 is the same story. 2015, it is the same story. And 2014 is the same story. So in the last, this is when we started, putting these statistics together in this form. So here it was 34%, that is 2014. So in the last 6 years, basically the emphasis here is that how does the industry, it answers the question, how does the country benefit from the natural endowment of mineral resources? And really one of the biggest, ways of contributing is by the industry supporting the local suppliers of goods and services. And you can see on average, it's over 40%, and we take pride on that. Then lastly, but not the least, regarding all these slides, the past slides that you've seen, is that we only about 80%, on average is about 80% of what we generate, all that stays in the country. And only about 20% goes outside the country. Again, this comes to the issue of governance and the issue of profits being not staying in the country and all that. And I'll come to the 2019 slide to illustrate that, is that what goes out in the country, which is about 20%, is in the form of dividends. Like 2019, you're talking of about dividends, you're talking about 2%, which is that one here. And then other operating expenditure, which is other operating expenditure, which is about, other operating expenditure. So basically the other procurement that we had to do from outside, which is not available. So the other goods and services, when we order equipment which is not manufactured here. So that comes to, that's the only money that goes outside. So having said that, let me share with you other points of, in terms of employment, I think this is very important. 2018 as compared to 2019, you see that 2018, permanent employed 9,000, 2019 more or less the same. of which expatriates 283. That comes to that figure I was telling you of just about 97% are Namibians, and just about foreigners on work permits, just about 3%. And it's the same thing 2019. So by and large, really, we are employing predominantly Namibian citizens, which is according to the requirements of the laws of the country. And obviously, being a capital-intensive industry, direct employment, about 16,000, but when you multiply that by a multiplying factor of about 7, you are talking of the industry is indirectly and directly indirectly employing another over 100,000 people in the value chain. So I think that is very significant. So the main issue, we are employing predominantly Namibians. I know my colleague Zenzi will talk about the gender aspect of it, but in terms of the total employment, that's what the picture is. Other issues in the report, which is basically our take at the chamber. Unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of really very serious allegations without any documentary proof, which is what I'm referring to, that if we had an opportunity to sit down, we could have actually put a lot of these things into perspective. So I'm seeing allegations of illicit financial flow, tax avoidance and tax evasion through transfer pricing, which, by the way, when they say transfer pricing, you are actually meaning it's a transfer mispricing and not transfer pricing. It's always confused. And really, we believe that this is very damaging to our industry because we've got a very high reputation as a Namibian mining industry. When you talk of issues of illicit financial outflow, I think you have to look at it with what is the role of the inland revenue in the governance, collection of revenue. You've touched on that, but I think what I wanted to bring to your attention here is that as far as the Chamber of Mines is concerned, we are working very closely with government, Minister of Finance, and by the way, our government has now established the Namibia Revenue Authority. The Namibian Revenue Authority last year announced by an act of parliament, they are setting up, they have recruited the CEO, and we believe it's this Namibia Revenue Authority that within that there will be a transfer pricing department, which will then look at the books of the mining industry and be able to make a statement as to whether there is any evidence of illicit financial outflow. So basically, this is the only authority, as far as we are concerned, that will be able to give us a clean bill to say that we are really operating according to the laws of the country. But so that is in coming. So basically, NAMRA will be the equivalent of SARS in South Africa or the Zambia Revenue Authority in Zambia. You allege that price manipulation is widespread, and again, I'm not seeing any evidence. It's just statements, and I think that does not help much to a report of this magnitude. And I would like to believe, the Southern Africa Resource Watch is a very credible NGO, and I think really in future I would urge you to ensure that the information that you get into such a report with such a big name is actually thoroughly researched to give it, the importance that it deserves. So really, as I said here, the manipulation of the prices, and again, it's not really that simple, because prices in our case, in the mineral sector, I mean, we have already got set prices at LME, for instance. So, and mining is a price taker. So we do not manipulate that. You talk of rampant tax avoidance in entire extractive industry, and again, proof is there. And then you've raised the issue of the Namibia not being a member of the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Well, not much comment from us, because that decision is really a government decision. It's not a private sector decision. But I can tell you, for us, the main thing is really NAMRA building the capacity to be able to look at our books and declare that we are indeed following the laws of the country. And by the way, I sometimes wonder why in Africa, while it's at the AU level, we've come up with what they call mineral governance, a framework, which is a very good initiative. But I see we don't seem to be looking at our own homegrown, governance frameworks. So maybe that is a food for thought for the authors. Then very quickly, my last slide is the Chamber of Mines, in terms of going forward and talking about governance, I alluded to the fact that the Chamber of Mines, we do publish our annual reports, our production statistics and the performance of the industry, as I've highlighted. These are real statistics. The statistics that you see in our Chamber of Mines annual report, in Namibia, they are the same statistics you find at the Bank of Namibia. They are the same statistics that you find at the Ministry of Mines and Energy. It's unlike in some other countries I've seen in Africa, whereby the industry statistics are so different from government bodies like the regulatory authority in the form of a Ministry of Mines, or even at the central bank. In Namibia, the statistics that you see in the annual Chamber of Mines report, they are the same that government has, and they have never been disputed. We've got all the information on the website. All these things I've shown with you, they're on the website, so we've nothing to hide. On top of that, because of the governance, we've got to explain. We owe it to the Namibians and to the citizens and all the stakeholders to explain what we do. And this is how in the last 10 years, we've been conducting our annual mining expo and conference to such an extent that to make it more possible for individuals to attend, everybody walks in there free of charge. We only recover the cost from the exhibitors. We also do annually, I think, Ricardo, you agree with us, we do engage you as media at the chamber here very often, again, because we believe the media, they are our stakeholders, major stakeholders to disseminate the information. So really, the engagement goes at all levels with government bodies, because we've got nothing to hide. And on top of that, as Chamber of Mines, we do cooperate at the regional level within the SADC region as MIASA, Mining Industry Association of Southern Africa. We're a very strong member there. And at a continental level in Africa, we are part of the Chamber of Mines is basically was very instrumental in the setting up and the establishment of now the continental private sector continental body in the name of Association of Chambers of Mines and other mining associations. We are a very strong member. So really, this is my take on this report. And otherwise, a good effort made, but I think it could have been better if you had engaged us directly. Let me end here and perhaps invite Laurent to add up on what I've just said, and then we can take it up from there. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, can I just carry on from where Mr. Malongo left off, or would the moderator like to come in and say something?
Ricardo, do you want to say something first?
I think I see a head nod there, so
okay.
I'll carry on. Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to. Sorry.
No, you can carry on, Lauren.
Thank you. I think Mr. Malongo has adequately covered all of the areas where our Namibian mining industry really does go beyond sort of what the company does and contributes really to the well-being of the nation. And I think he's illustrated through, the procurement numbers and employment and CSR and so forth, really that mining does make a positive impact in Namibia, and it does contribute to the country's socioeconomic development and well-being. I just wanted to maybe touch on the investment side of things, and I don't have a slide for this per se, but I just did a quick calculation now, just to highlight also that since 2013 until now, we've seen through our own members an approximate total of about $40 billion worth of investment coming into the country. And if you compare that to our nominal GDP at the moment, it's around about a third. And that is by and large because of, the favorable regulatory and investment climate that Namibia has been able to uphold and maintain over the years. Yes, we have had our challenges, but I think our role as the chamber and we've been able to maintain also a good relationship with government, in that we've been able to negotiate and really push for favorable policy outcomes, and also that on the tax front. So I think really just to reiterate that as well, and that Namibia does have a favorable regime at this point in time. And just also to go back to the report, and where I think there was reference made in the report that the tax regime is not optimal. I think we should be careful of saying that, because it could give the idea that we need to change certain things within that. I think the balance as it is now has been optimally achieved, so that the country can benefit, being the government as well as the people, and the government. So I think, we just need to be careful of insinuating those aspects in the report itself. And then just one other thing that I picked up as well, the report makes reference to that the tax regime is too high, the corporate tax. Yes, that is correct. In comparison to other countries, Namibia's corporate tax rate is actually on the higher end. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that it is because the corporate tax is too high that companies are looking for ways to avoid paying tax. I think the real issue has been that many of our companies, if you actually go and look at the annual reports, is that they've been declaring losses even before they've been able to pay those corporate taxes. So I think that's just an important technical nuance that was perhaps overlooked in writing up this report. And I think, from my side, that's all. And then we can perhaps pick up on discussions once further details have been presented. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Ricardo, before you come in, just one more point from my side is just to touch on the issue of rehabilitation. I think it was an important issue that was mentioned by the author. I think it's they have made a correct observation that we've actually got a legacy. They didn't use the word legacy. We've got a legacy of unrehabilitated mine sites. There's an inventory of that, which at the Geological Survey. But when it comes to really mine closure issues and all that, I think the legislation is very clear, but to such an extent that we as a Chamber of Mines, we've come up with the Namibian Mine Closure Framework, which guides mines on how to do rehabilitation on a continuous basis, and then at the end of the life of mine. The main thing that is still outstanding, which I think that it's correct that they picked up, is that the issue of the financial mechanisms, or where do you have enough funds to rehabilitate a mine after 25 or 30 years or 50 years? That is a matter which we ourselves at the chamber, we've actually made proposals to government on how we can amend legislation. In this case, it's the Minerals Act and possibly the Environmental Management Act to bring in those. So the chamber has been proactive to come up with proposals to government to see how we can create financial mechanisms to ensure that there is funding available at the end of that. And in the event that a company goes bust, then you do not have a situation where, as in the previous legacy, individuals or entities actually went into thin air and left the mine sites unrehabilitated. And those are now the legacy issues that are being referred to in the report. I just wanted to be clear. I think on that note, let me hand over back to you, Ricardo. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Malangu, for giving us that one. And I was going to really touch on that issue around the mine rehabilitation as well, but I'm sure there will be some time for us to chat a bit, because I have one or two questions also on those issues, particularly with regards to the employment numbers that have also been shared as well. But for now, I think it's important for us to move on to the next contribution. I see that I'm just trying to make sure we've had Ms. Navas has joined us a bit earlier, but then we lost it again. I think she's having a bit of challenges with connecting. I'm just trying to make sure whether she's, doesn't seem like she'll be joining us, but doesn't look like she'll be joining us. So I think we'll move on. Those concerns that you pointed out are noted. I think we'll engage the team. Martin is around, Gilbert is also around, so we'll talk to them a little bit in detail of that. But for now, let's quickly move over to Gilbert while we're waiting for Zenzi to try to log on again. Gilbert Jemwa is, of course, a geologist and also co-author of the research under discussion. And he will just highlight to us a bit on the key recommendations that the report makes and what the way forward is here. And I think perhaps as we start off, Gilbert, you might touch on one or two issues that were raised by the chamber in as far as the engagement with them is concerned in your research process, and one or two issues that we're pointing out, particularly on the issue around tax avoidance and non-compliance, where they feel that there should have been a little bit more concrete evidence before those statements were made. Gilbert?
You're muted, Gilbert.
Gilbert, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Thank you, Ricardo. And thank you, Mr. Malango, for raising those issues, especially concerning the tax avoidance, illicit financial transfer file. We are not saying everybody in the industry is doing that. I think also let me start by this. Mr. Malango, you said that the chamber was not consulted. I think that's not right. It's not correct. That's not correct. I was actually dealing with the lady who is here today, with Lorraine Davidson. So the chamber was consulted. Unless consultation means that we were supposed to give you the report before it was published, then yes, I agree. But then that will result into censoring of the report, which is not right when you're actually doing a research. Right. So the chamber was up. All the people, the regulator was consulted. We sent letters. We sent introductory letters to everybody. So I think it's not right to say, it's not correct rather, to say the chamber was not correct, consulted. That's not true. All right. Let me go and answer Mr. Malango and Lawrence concerns. Right. From the presentation that Mr. Malango is actually given us, it would look that he is crowding everything together. He is not pinpointing what are the issues that we sought out to investigate in the report. We did not, like on the employment side, we are not questioning that the mining industry is employing Namibians. That's not the question. The question is, what is the gender composition of the employment? That's the one that we find that is skewed in favor of the males at all levels. If you go to the shop floor, go to middle management, upper middle management, and the executive, you find that females are underrepresented. That's the question. And that was what we researched on. Right. And then I'll go to the illicit financial transfers and tax avoidance and tax evasion practices. I also saw that Mr. Galloway, who is actually here, this is a wild allegation. That's not true. It's not. We gave examples of big corporations in the industry. We even said, but if you look at it, it's actually not the chamber's problem. And to say that there is no correlationship, like Davison has said, there is no correlationship between high corporate tax and the practice that we are seeing as symptoms of high corporate taxes, corporate tax. It's also not correct. Right, we gave an example through the interviews, we were given solid evidence where dozers, because they were imported from the country and the prices were inflated. And then an organization ended up getting more than close to 2 billion tax credit. What is that? What is that? If it is not what we are talking about, we gave an example of a mining company that is vertically integrated, right? Where you have got this company ideally is running the mine at a loss. Where is it making its profit? So what you need to do, you need to follow the value chain in order for you to understand exactly where the problem is. So there are good examples in that research. So I think it would be wrong to say examples are not given in the research. We demonstrated that because this company is operating at a loss in Namibia and then go outside where it actually adds value to the same cake that is obtaining from Namibia, where the price, the value actually, is 34. This is real. It's not, we're not cooking these figures. This is real. It's happening. So who is the problem? It's not the chamber. It's actually the regulator if you look at it. They are discussing, negotiating deals that are not in favor of the country. So that's one of our recommendations that I say, when such deals are actually negotiated, probably you don't need to put a politician to negotiate a deal. You need somebody who is a business savvy, but with the background of the industry that you're talking about. Some projects are actually best to put on care and maintenance until the prices are correct themselves in order for you to mine. Otherwise, at the current rate, surely this operation we are talking about, the government, the Namibian people are not going to accrue anything. That's number one. Then number two, they're saying the industry has contributed so much in billions of dollars. That's not the question that we are looking at. We are looking at tax avoidance, tax evasion, and what is causing that. Look at the corporate tax, it's way too high. 55 for diamonds, 37.5 for the other minerals. Right, but look at the past 3 years using the chamber's data. For the past 3 years, corporate tax in this country has been paid, over 90% of corporate tax in this country has been paid by one company. So if there is no tax avoidance, what are the other guys doing? Okay, what are the other guys doing? What are they contributing? That's what I'm not using our figures. We did not cook these figures. They are chamber figures. We need to interrogate chamber figures, not just to be given as, figures that are not, you need to disaggregate the figures and understand them, interrogate them. That's what we did. Right. It's only Namibia holdings. I think if you are talking of mining in Namibia at the current with the data that we got, the only company that is worth talking about being contributing substantially to the government is Namibia holdings. And obviously a few companies that started production maybe 3-4 years ago that are now coming, they are recouping their, invested capital. Those, you cannot just say a trajectory, that is good. You see that, right? You look at the royalties. Up to 70%, over 70% of royalties paid by the whole mining industry using chamber data was paid by one company for the past 3 years. Actually, you can actually trace it to the past 5 years. The same trend is true if you look at the export levies. Using not our data, using chambers data. So what exactly is happening? So you go back now and say, what are the things that happen? Are the things that we are talking about? Even in theory, there is a direct correlationship between high corporate taxes and these practices. It's there. You see? So those are the things that we're talking about. Corporate social responsibility they touched on, which say most of the corporate responsibilities that is practices in Canada or in Australia or in developed countries should be different from social corporate responsibilities that are supposed to be implemented in a developing country, a third world country like ours, Namibia today. It should be one that touches directly on aspects of the human development. The current, I'm not saying you look at the big players, the same guys who are doing good, and the other company, I would say some of the companies that we mentioned in the report, they're doing well. You can actually see a good trajectory, the good one. Right. You see a company employing, say, we are doing corporate social responsibility, assisting about 25 women to do market garden. Really? What are we talking about? Are we being serious here? Right. What are the aspects that we need? What are those elements of the human development aspects? It's your education, the infrastructure, and the input. And the chamber is employing, probably the chamber by the law of average in the country in terms of rewards to their employees is the best. No one is questioning that. When I say the chamber, I'm saying the industry. Right. So I think that we need to raise that. It is there. And what we need to do is how do we correct it? Right. Because that's why we say we find gaps, like Martin said in the first. We find gaps in the legislation that needs to be corrected. Right. We are saying if you go to the Mineral Act, these are now our recommendations. The Mineral Act, the Mining Act, the legal framework, a raft of all the legal laws that are used to govern the mineral sector today, they were enacted about 25 years ago, but the realities on the ground have changed, right? We are talking of clear examples that the data that is given by companies submitted to show the progress on their work activity in the various license that they hold can be improved. That's what we are trying to say, so that the government does not repeat exactly the same thing. I'll give you examples. I can pick a company that did a lot of mapping in the Kunene belt, which is Tecominco, a lot of regional mapping, and then followed up by detailed mapping. That data is submitted to the ministry as hard copies in PDF, because it's in a CD, it's called digital. But is it in a readily usable format? No, it's not. Why don't we submit this? Now, that has nothing to do with the chamber. Because the chamber, if you look at some of the companies in the industry, they're already doing it out of their own initiative. But the ministry, the regulator, is not implementing that. What you need is now to say, okay, fine, when you submit this, I need them in a usable format, shape files, and they've got capacity to use the shape files, of course, ability, they've got the tools to use this data, where you can actually then say, okay, Tecominco did some work there, Orsino did there, and B2Go did some work there. Let's put a mosaic of these data sets, mapping. The government does not need to go and start doing the mapping. All what it does then is to go and check areas where there are questions. That cuts the bill of the government to doing the work. That's what we are recommending. Right. We are talking about closure plans, and I think we are in agreement with the chamber. If you look at the current operators, we did not find any problem really in terms of a problem that emanate from the mining operation. Or the problem that we have is a result of historical operations that were literally dammed without any closure plan, without reclamation plan in place. And during that time, there was no fund put aside through an act or a policy by the government, the regulator, to say, okay, we then need to rehabilitate in the event. These are the problems that we're having. We didn't find problems with the current the players in the mining companies, no. That is where the problem is. So we agree with that. I think we are in agreement with the chamber as a representative of the industry. So we are saying, going forward, as a recommendation, the government should make it a policy, especially when you are applying for a license, especially a mining license, where you then to say, okay, fine, we need you to actually put a deposit of so much. It's being done in Angola, even at a prospecting license level. They ask you, based on your estimated expenditure, to put at least a 1% of your expenditure as a guarantee for environmental rehabilitation purposes. That's what we are talking about. That's where we have got gaps in the Mineral Act. It does not talk about that. The industry, like Mr. Malango has said, it has taken initiative out of its own, to put certain things in place, and that's commendable. Right. And then we are saying on corporate social responsibility as a recommendation, we have got a problem that you find that there are companies that are already taking initiatives to do the right thing. But you also have got the majority of players in the industry who are not engaging in meaningful corporate social responsibilities activities. That needs to change. We are not talking about, nobody questioned whether the industry is employing people from outside. Actually, employing people from outside with the requisite skills is good, because that's one of the problems that we are actually facing with the government. Because what we are saying right now, like at the revenue, inland revenue department, you find that the organization is manned by people who are just coming from school, and they have been given position of authority, but they can't comprehend the figures, the data that is before them. That's when we are talking of capacity, that's what we are talking about. Right, so there is a problem there that needs to be solved, and it needs to be changed. We can't run away from the fact that the corporate tax needs to be lowered. It has to be, it's just way too high. And it causes the players in the industry to find subtle ways to go around it. It's there. There is evidence in the report. So they're not wild allegations that someone is trying to put it. They're there, you see? And so these are our recommendations going forward. We need to, one, we need to amend certain aspects of the Mineral Act that has got weaknesses, because, and the Act as it is today, it does not allow the Ministry of Mines, which has got capacity to comprehend certain figures, and the inland revenue to come together, because the Ministry of Mines as a regulator is actually regarded in the Act as a third part by the Income Act. So they don't get to actually see the data that is submitted and interrogate it to say whether it makes sense, because that's where you find mining engineers, that's where you find mineral economics, that's where you find geologists who actually understand this. These people are not there. You find exactly the same thing being repeated at the environment. The permits and is regulated by the Ministry of Environment. Yet the Ministry of Mines has got the laboratory to test most of these things. Again, there are communication gaps there. Exactly, if you go to finance, it's exactly the same thing with the Bank of Namibia. So those are the things that we're saying they need attention. They need to be improved on. So this Mineral Act should not be just an act. It should be a living document that should conform to circumstances of the day.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Gilbert, in the interest of time, I'm going to give you 2 more minutes to just close up, because we still want to make time for Zenzi to quickly come in to give us the gender perspective.
Okay, no, that's fine. So that's what we are saying. So we are saying the legal framework in the mining sector needs to be changed, so that at least it promotes, it enables the government to mobilize its financial resources, optimally financial resources for its socio-economic development agenda. We commend the industry for the initiative that they've taken, but they also need to stop some of the what I'll call unethical. Like we gave examples of excessive leveraging by multinationals, right? So I think that's what I would say. Most of the things we can discuss later.
All right. Thank you, Gilbert. Zenzi, just unmute. You're muted, yeah? There we go.
Hi, Ricardo, hi, Weston, and everybody else on here. It's always so nice to sit on a panel with my colleagues from the Chamber of Mines. And Ricardo, I was actually online. I've been experiencing the worst kind of technical problems this morning. So I use Scorpion's computer, and you guys kicked me out. So I'm here. So I've got 2 to 3 minutes at least to cover this.
No, that's good. Just for our participants, Zenzi is the president of Women in Mining in Namibia. She's a geologist by profession. And then, of course, she'll be giving us a perspective on the gender equity and as far as employment is concerned in the sector, particularly some scary numbers, Zenzi, there when it comes to executive management at mining companies.
Ricardo, they're not just scary, they're actually kind of depressing. But let me just set the scene for a second, because I can see Weston is already smiling, waiting for to jump in to say something to me. I think it's, first of all, let me congratulate Gilbert and Martin on this report. Look, I did listen in on Weston and Lauren's view on what they thought about the report. Though the research might have been on or off, the point remains that the report is out there, and it does give an indication of what's happening in the mining industry of Namibia. From my perspective, from a gender perspective, I think they were spot on with the numbers that they quoted on the female representation in the mining industry. Sorry, I'm using my phone, so you're gonna. Oh my goodness, I'm here. Okay.
We're still with you. You're still with us. You're still with us.
Okay. But I think, as you rightfully put it, Ricardo, the numbers are looking scary. But for me, it's always important to try and answer the question: why do we look at gender, any industry from a gender perspective, and why must we? Yeah, why is it so depressing? So over the past, say, 10 years or so, the mining industry has seen a very progressive, but I call it painstakingly slow increase in the number of intake of females in the industry. And now I have to put it in perspective that the industry is what we now call as male populated, and that's no lie. I mean, the industry always had a lot of males, especially in the technical positions. But females have always been there. I always maintain we have been around in the industry, but mostly in the non-traditional technical roles, such as accounting and HR and so forth. But over the years, we have come in as geologists, we have come in as mining engineers, and slowly but surely we are entering, climbing the ranks. The point remains, though, that the numbers are for female representation is very big in the lower ranks, but very low, very, very low at the higher ranks. And I'll put that in perspective over the past 10 years. And of course, we're using the numbers from the Employment Equity Commission. The latest numbers we have is 2017, 18, I think it is. We just spoke to the Labor Commissioner 2 days ago, and he informed us, or was it on Friday, Nora? Yeah, that the numbers are ready, that the latest numbers will be published, and I'm hoping that it will kind of give you a perspective of what's currently happening. The point remains, though, that over the past 10 years, we've seen an increase in executive directorship, or what will be known in other countries, like South Africa, as the top management roles, of 10% female representation. Now, if you unpack that 10%, it actually means 4 out of 40 executives in the country are female. And that is where it becomes a little bit scary and depressing for me, because that's over 10 years. How much longer will it take for that number to increase? But the question is, why is it important to see gender equality in the mining industry. We can speak until we're blue in the face about numbers and stuff like that, but for me, it's very important to put in perspective, why must we look at achieving gender equality in the mining industry? Well, simply put, it is that the economic implication of gender equality, especially in the mining industry, are quite significant. Now, allow me to just give you 4 definitions of, or rather 4 perspectives of why equality is seen as important in the economy. First of all, Namibia, the mining industry remains the mainstay of Namibia's economy. Especially, you saw business numbers earlier. Now, the UN Women says that economic empowerment is central to gender equality. And then that this includes the woman's ability to participate equally in existing markets as well as economic decision-making. Care International states that women economic empowerment puts women in a stronger position and gives them the power to participate together with men in shaping societies and influencing development in all levels of society. The OECD, which is the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, states that meaningful participation of women in the labor force is crucial for promoting and sustaining economic growth. The World Bank, on the other hand, argues that empowering women as economic, political, and social actors can change policy choices and ensure more representative decision-making. Now, Weston, I think he shared more on that. He broke down the tax and so forth. But if we look at the GDP, the Namibian industry, I think it was last year, reported a 9.3% contribution to the GDP of the country. And this is despite being the world's largest uranium producer, as it said in this report, and being the primary source of gem quality diamonds. By looking at the definitions provided by UN Women and so forth, you can see that gender equality has a lot more benefit for especially in the mining industry, has a lot more benefit to the economy of the nation. Also, the added benefit of a gender equality in the industry is that it captures the competitive advantage for changing demographics across the workplace and in the marketplace. One of the reasons why our numbers look so skewed, especially in the entry level, is that we are now currently struggling to attract females to the industry. And that's because the young ladies are asking questions such as, why has that number on top remained the same over the 10 years? And how much longer, or what do I have to do to get there? To eventually get in the top structures. What we do know is that gender equality benefits both male and female, but unfortunately, we have a gendered power structure, and coupled with social norms, it locks both women and men in positions that limit both productivity and their ability to make choices to improve their situation. Now, somebody will argue and say, but since we are seeing more females, and the thing is, yes, we are seeing more females, but the fact that there are more females, in other words, the fact that the industry has become more diverse does not automatically mean that the industry has become equal, or rather that gender equality has been achieved. Isn't that right, Weston? Because, because I really believe that gender equality is a combination of diversity and inclusion, and that is being done. Most of the companies are currently they've recognized that fact, and they're currently looking at ways that they can combat or improve on diversity and inclusion. But we have been ignoring the significant impact that unconscious bias has been doing to this particular situation. Without tackling unconscious bias, the benefits of diversity and inclusion, which is gender equality, will not be realized. And that, for me, in a nutshell, I was asked today to speak about the issues of females in the industry. That is, in a nutshell, the main issue that we have as females, that we will come in any case, but because of unconscious bias, we will still, at this point in time, be held back. And I want to commend the companies that are currently working on the fact of on the issue of diversity and inclusion. But the mere fact that we're having isolated efforts is not going to work. We need the entire industry to get together and actually tackle the situation. We also need a perception shift, both from males and females, to make this a reality. I think I'm going to stop here, and then perhaps give it back to you, Ricardo, for Q&A.
Ricardo, you're muted.
There we go. Thank you very much, Zenzi, for giving us that perspective. I think when it comes to gender equity generally across the continent, things have been moving slow. Namibia has been doing very well from a political perspective, but I think for business involvement, there's still much work that still needs to be done in that area. But I wanted to quickly take you back to, I think, one of the serious issues that we're having here, and I really want Mr. Malango to respond to this as well, and perhaps also Lauren, on this issue. The three main taxes that we have, and it was mentioned by Gilbert, the corporate tax, export levy, royalties in place for mobilizing financial resources from the sector are inefficient, is what Resource Watch is arguing. And based on the data from the Chamber of Mines, 91.7% of the total corporate, 73.7% of total royalties, and 60% of total export levies paid by the entire sector was paid by one company, Namdeb Holdings, as mentioned. Yet Namdeb Holdings turnover is only represents only about 37.7% of the entire sector's turnover. Surely that should be something that's very, very concerning for the chamber.
Yes, may I come in?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yes, first of all, to Gilbert, thanks for the many clarifications that you provided, although you missed quite a couple of things. I'm glad that you engaged Lauren in your work. If you had let me know that you wanted to see me, I would have made myself available. I would have actually still made a lot of clarification on quite a number of issues that you've raised. But I'm glad that you consulted my colleague. It's not, we do not want to censure your reports. Please be assured that's not our business. Our business is to give you the information, then you write according to what you have analyzed. Gender composition, I'm glad that Zenzi has addressed that. But really, I think coming to your question, Gilbert, Ricardo, is that let's take the three issues here. Corporate tax is paid only when a company has declared profit. So it's only few companies that have been declaring a profit because obviously you've got all the losses that have got to be carried forward. That's the simple reason. So corporate tax is not all the companies that are paying it every year because it's not every year that you declare dividends. And that's why you see even the amount of money that goes outside as a dividends, it's not every company that is declaring dividends. So you find we are not having a lot of money going out as such. So it's only when you talk of royalty, royalty is paid based on the revenue. So it doesn't matter whether you make profits or losses, you pay the royalties. And that, Gilbert, please, when it comes to royalty and export levy, which are revenue-based taxes, all the companies are paying, and we are declaring that in our annual report. You go to any company, it is there. So really, and again, as I was saying, we've got nothing to hide. Then very quickly, the relationship, I see that Gilbert is advocating that, corporate tax should be lowered because it's very high at 7.5%, and at 55% for diamonds should be lowered. Well, that you can have the discussion with the Minister of Mines and Minister of Finance. They're not going to agree with you. But your correlation to say that because the corporate tax is very high and therefore out is that, yes, if we mine, look at the diamond, just give an example for a diamond. We are getting the bulk of the 6 to 10 times more than what we are making currently. But that is only done in countries where they don't even mine a single carat of diamond. Look at countries like Belgium or Israel. There's no diamond mining, but they're the ones who create the biggest wealth at the end of the value chain. Why? It comes back to the issue of value addition. So you cannot now say because now the wealth that is created there is so much times more than what we sell here, and then you attribute that to the issue of illicit financial flows. There's no logic in that. And I think that is the point that I would suggest Gilbert, as an organization, as Southern Africa Resource Watch, I think we can take that discussion further, and we can have again another discussions like this. We need to interrogate that so that we don't leave the public in suspense. I think we need to bring these matters, to bed. Then my last point, again on the same point, this is where I'm really mentioning that the Namibia Revenue Authority, that will be the ultimate authority institution that will actually bring these matters. For instance, the two cases that you've given as examples, Gemma, in the report, I would love this kind of allegation. That is what you go as a whistleblower to the Namibia Revenue Authority, and you're entitled to do that. And then it is our job as a chamber is to make sure that our members open the books and an investigation is thoroughly done. And based on that, the outcome, you let NAMRA make a public pronouncement. There was this investigation, we found this or we didn't find this. And so far, I think Namibia have been doing very well when you look at the whole Africa in terms of actually declaring what we earn, what we produce, and what we give to government. Back to you, Ricardo.
Let me just give Lauren a chance. There's Lauren, you want to add some value to that? Or
Lauren may want to.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Gilbert, yes, you guys did, I would acknowledge you did consult us by email, and it would have been great if we could take, and I directed your queries to the annual review, and it would have been great if we could have taken up your deductions and findings perhaps further in direct conversation, perhaps just to clarify a few matters. I'd like to reiterate as well, just providing or backing what Mr. Malango said, that yeah, it doesn't really matter, one can't make these deductions based on how much revenue was generated by a specific resource sector. So the fact of the matter that diamonds have consistently been generating profits over the last 6-7 years, and because of the higher tax structure, they've also thereby been paying more. They've been carrying the tax, that tax weighed by the mining industry. But that doesn't mean to say that the rest of the companies are evading tax. The fact of the matter is that they just they've simply not been making profits. You cannot pay corporate taxes if you haven't been making profits. And the royalties, because the royalty structure is that because those the other base metals, they're low value minerals. So the loyalty structure is that they will be lower for those minerals in comparison to diamonds. Diamond is a very high value mineral. So your tax structure for that is geared to that higher value mineral. And it's the only place or mineral that it's so highly discriminated, but that's been negotiated with government and the diamond mining company. So I think to make those to use that and to make those deductions to say that the rest of the industry has been avoiding taxes is a little bit unfounded, and would require, I think, further investigation of the actual books, as Mr. Malango has just mentioned. Thank you.
Right. Can I come in to Ricardo?
Yes, please. That's what I wanted to say.
Lorraine and Mr. Malango, I think you're missing the point. The point is, after the interview, this is what we got, okay? And we wanted to find out what was, because remember, the methodology, it was a mixed methodology. Desk studies and interviews. Those were the sources of information. And from the sources of information, that's what we got. And we're then trying to find out why it is like that. And I agree with Lorraine. You say, I think Martin said it from the onset. This was a preliminary study. We need to do more.
Yes.
But let me say this. I've done 3 researches now. I did a research on value addition, local content and value addition. I had an interview with Mr. Malango, right? But he was busy when I was doing the interview, right? But he made time, which I appreciate. I then did another research, which was the effects of foreign direct investment in the inflows into the mineral sector on poverty reduction in the country, meaning this Namibia, the case of Namibia. Again, you find that there is always a resistance by organizations such as Chamber and other organizations, but especially Chamber, to go into the nitty-gritties of this so that at least you give an informed message out there based on your research. There is that, I'm sorry to say, but that's my feeling I've experienced because from these three research. Because like Lorraine, you know for sure, you say, no, all the information that you need from us is on our website. We use that information and then you say that information is not correct. Right, also we wanted interviews. Remember, Lorraine, we all agreed because there was COVID. There was COVID that time and it was not possible to have interviews, one-on-one interviews, even telephonic at times. It was very difficult with individuals. We know that. So we need more time to actually go deep and let's get more. That we know. We are sure.
Okay. Well, thank you, Giwa, for that as well. I think especially on this issue, the good thing is that the report is out and the conversation is now in the mainstream national discourse, and we can be able to unpack this as well. And as far as the accuracy of statements and so are concerned, I think where there is no statistics provided or the statistics are inaccurate, then we can deal with the issue. But if it's a matter of perception and maybe the usage of certain words and so on, then I think unfortunately that we can't deal with at this platform at this stage. But I think the fundamental issues are being addressed, and we need to see, I think perhaps from the side of the chamber as well, if there are gross inaccuracies with certain issues, take up the effort and I think create a little bit more platforms so that we can also engage on some of these issues as well. And I think the chamber is free to do so. Martin, do you want to add something on the tax issue before I move on? I've got actually one question also. Came in from an Andy, and Andy was saying here, basically just asking, does it mean that all the other mining companies are making a loss? I think Mr. Malangu touched on that a little bit. But Martin, do you have any value to add to the tax issue? Because I quickly wanted to move over to the corporate social responsibility side. Are you fine, Martin? Okay. All right. Now on the CSR issue, I think it's quite a serious one that we need to look at. There's no legislation in as far as the mining sector is concerned, and it's not a condition for obtaining any license in Namibia as well. But we know that there's other legislation, for example, the Communal Lands Act that talks about where there is any operation in a communal area, then there has to be the involvement of the community, or they have to benefit in one way or the other as well. And many of the mining companies are operating generally, they consider CSR as a business strategy that is meant to gain favor with the communities, and not something that is an obligation from the regulator as well. In that space, I just wanted thoughts on that as well from the chamber as well as with Gilbert. Gilbert, you're saying that needs to be looked into, but what is the practical way forward that you're providing? Are you saying that there has to be a percentage of perhaps a profit or turnover, or whatever the case might be, and must CSR or a certain percentage of CSR become a condition for obtaining a mining license in the first place?
Correct. This is what we are saying. You see, whatever corporate social responsibility that the company needs to propose before. That's our recommendation. You need to propose what kind of corporate social responsibility that they are going to be giving out there, right? Activity. The reason for that is that, like I said earlier on, corporate social responsibility in Canada, Australia, developed countries should be different from what you find that are supposed to be done in developing countries. Here we are talking of people who are poor, so they should be targeted on aspects of the human development. Not there are good companies that are doing here. Lorraine gave me some of the companies that are doing well on the corporate social responsibility. But if you look at the majority of them, so we're talking by the law of average here, there are things that you actually see, these are, they're just there. Like, someone saying, actually, we're actually growing vegetables. What are you trying to say when you're saying we are giving these people to grow vegetables and we go there once after every 6 months? So we're saying the government must identify areas in this region where these operations are taking place, where they need assistance. But they must not be foisted on the chamber. They need to come together and agree. But the idea should be they must be focused on actually improving the lives of people. That's what we're talking about.
On the issue on CSR, Mr. Malango?
Yes, a quick
Martin,
one.
Martin,
I think,
yeah,
a quick one to all participants. I think we don't disagree on CSR. In fact, we don't even look at it as CSR really. For us, it's a corporate social investment. It's an investment because those are the societies you're operating from there. Gemma, at an appropriate time, I would like to share with you some other developments that we are looking at, because we are told only CSR is to take care of the communities where we are operating. We've actually now got programs at the chamber through the whole industry to look at now what happens to the other regions where we are not there. It means those communities can only benefit from the taxation regime, central government. So we are even looking at projects which we are financing to look at and target communities where there's no mining. So we can discuss that later on.
Chamber? Is that from the chamber itself?
That's the chamber is coordinating that. The money I collected from the mining companies, but we identify projects that are worthy and that are sustainable, and we then finance those. And those we've done 2, and we are looking at covering the whole of Namibia where mining is not taking place. But that is a different, we can discuss that differently. But the point I'm making here, I wanted to come to the fact that, to mention that, Gemma, you're right, and even yourself, Ricardo, I mean, CSR is not legislated, that's a fact. But I want to tell you, and I want to invite you to look at our draft mining charter, because, and again, this is industry being proactive, and we have drafted this mining charter. It's now with government. We are discussing that, and once NIEF is legislated, then that mining charter will also be legislated, the final version of that. And there is an element, CSR is a very important pillar in our mining charter. So I would say, watch the space. A lot is coming, which is good for the communities.
Okay, so in terms of, I mean, since it's now at Parliament, it basically becomes a Parliament document for a public document, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
What exactly is included in it? Just very briefly, are you giving sort of a percentage obligation, or how has it been structured?
We have suggested in that pillar a certain percentage of the turnover.
Okay.
To be allocated to the communities, and then of course, and again a structure, because it doesn't help giving the communities money. You've got to put up a structure so that they're able to actually manage the funds. They should be able to actually see what projects are priority, and there should be some accountability to ensure that everybody benefits. Otherwise, you're going to give money to a few people and all that. So it does, again, it defeats our purpose. So we're simply saying we are very upbeat about the CSR pillar in our mining charter. Just watch the space, and again, I'll be very happy to discuss with the authors. But I think the bottom line here is my last word, perhaps, Ricardo, is that look, this is a first discussion. We should take this as a continuous, engagement. The way I see it, I think they did a good job, Martin and Gilbert. I think we should give them credit. In spite of all the shortcomings that we see as the chamber, it was also during the difficult period of COVID. I mean, let's give that. I think that's a fact. But I would like to submit here that a lot of work needs to be done, and we are here to ensure that we unpack the issues that are still outstanding. Because look, even on this platform, Minister of Mines are not here. I sent your record. I mean, your report. I shared it with the Office of the Mining Commissioner and his colleagues, but I see a few are in here. Isabella Sheshe is here, but I don't know how many are following. But I would have loved the next panel of discussions. Let MME be there, because a lot of things are from the issue of the regulatory point of view.
Yeah, we of course also, and I think that's also the other thing, the apologies coming in from the Bank of Namibia as well, because we wanted, we reach out for a representative to also be part of the conversation from the SARW. But we've seen that at last minute they had informed Research Watch that unfortunately they needed a final authorization from the governor, which they couldn't get in time as well. So I think there might be a need to set up another conversation of this nature, either between the Research Watch or also even perhaps also established by the Chamber of Mines itself as well. Martin, can you quickly come in there as well? I see you had unmuted your mic a bit earlier on as well. You still want to add value?
Yeah, but I think it was essentially to just echo the sentiments of Mr. Malango. I think to just say that there's CSR must be in line with government's priority areas, because I think from our observation is that the initiatives have been very much isolated. It would be building a school in one community, and then there's never a way forward of how the school would be maintained post it just being built, or as Gilbert says, providing a food garden. And then in the long run, there's no sustainability of the project because the community cannot maintain the garden without much assistance from the companies. And I think that's the issue with CSR initiatives. They're very unsustainable. They require the mine for long periods to continuously support communities. And once that stops, the project in itself fails. So I think from mining companies, there's really a need for them to align their initiatives with the government's priority areas, and to ensure that there's a proper working relationships in terms of what they plow into communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, Claude Kabemba also supports that conversation, saying here that, for example, in DRC, there had been a percentage about regulation, but there are no structures in terms of how that money needs to be spent. So the money is given, but the money is not spent appropriately. So at the end of the day, we still don't see that happening as well. And I think if you're talking about revenue that comes in from here, I think from a geopolitical conversation as well, we keep mentioning and talking about how can African communities, how can Namibian communities benefit from the natural resource management. Then this is perhaps one of the easiest ways that we can do that, to meet that triple bottom line, where the social aspect is taken care of, the environmental aspect is taken care of, and of course the companies also end up making their requisite profits. John is asking, of course, also here as well. He's running us through Facebook, and was asking here on the issue of the mining charter and all other policies, saying that it's been, let me just see this quickly, it's been quite a time since these things have been worked on, and every time something is raised, we get told that the legislation is being reviewed, especially the issue around rehabilitation. We studied about this 4 years ago when I was doing my LLB honors at the University of Namibia. How has this still not been made law? We are wasting away our natural resources. Mr. Malango, can you please come in here, and perhaps the researchers? So John, of course, asking a serious concern, saying here that it's been quite some time that we've been working on this legislation, the mining charter, and the concern around rehabilitation and mine closures. I know generally also from government as well, they want to work on a model where they create a situation where there's, of course, also a financial assurance, etc., being put in place before the license is awarded. Mr. Malango, the time it takes for this legislation and policies to be finalized.
Well, look, I share the frustrations of the person who was asked the question. We've got the same frustrations here at the chamber, in the sense that we, as the private sector, we have actually, through the chamber, we've actually come up with concrete proposals on how companies can be obligated to ensure that their financial arrangements, whether it be funds or bonds or whatever, that are in place to ensure that at any given time, there's enough resources to actually rehabilitate the environment. So those proposals, we made them several years ago. They are lying with government. So that is not a question. That answer I wouldn't be able to answer on behalf of government. But with the person that has asked that question, please is welcome to contact us, and we can have a one-on-one. Then we can elaborate on the details of what we've actually proposed to government, and from our side, how we see the delays are happening. But so far, the good news is that I'm told actually that we should expect a lot of progress this year. Hopefully that some legislation will be passed in Parliament this year, which would then incorporate our proposals. So our proposals are.
Mr. Malango, I was looking at, with the opening of Parliament last week, I was looking at what are the bills that are on the roll that they're going to discuss. And there's nothing on mining there. So maybe you need to just see if you can get in touch with your colleagues on that side to make sure that that comes on as part of the current session. We've got a question that came in here. This one, well, I think it's more of a comment. This one says, just like to thank the researchers for including a gender dynamic here as well. Many of these studies do not have any gender dynamics that come in as well. I would just like to ask Ms. Zenzi, okay, it's a question as well. So Ms. Zenzi, how do we practically move the needle? Because it was the same also in other sectors. And talking about that as well, Zenzi, there was another comment that came in a bit earlier on that said the banking sector was also in the same predicament 10 years ago, and now about plus over 80% of the executives of banks are women. Of course, you know, I think the 4 banks in Namibia that are being headed by women here as well. Zenzi?
Is she still there?
There we go.
I did unmute. Yeah, I saw the comment by Steve saying that, you know, the banking industry had the same issue as we did, but I think it's very important that we don't just loosely throw those comments out, but actually go in there and do an in-depth study. As I've mentioned, of what the banking industry did well to get to where they are. I together with Steve and everybody else is applauding the banking industry for making such a commendable improvement in pushing the females up onto the ladder. The question about what do we practically do, you know, that's a very tricky one because and that's, I guess, what we've been trying to prove over the past 3 years with the existence of the association. It's because this particular thing is a personal thing. it's basically we need to look at we need to look at actually the leadership in the mining industry starting to believe that there is actually a serious case of a beneficial case to having more females up in decision-making roles. So there are several steps, which I'm not sure I can go into now, but I mean, it's like I said earlier, they start first of all with a literal paradigm and a mindset shift, and seeing why we need to be here. And the touch I put on the unconscious bias, it's very basic and almost intangible. I always share the example of a colleague of mine whom I studied with in South Africa. We were both entering the mining industry. We're both doing the same qualification, yet he still looked at me as an African woman who should not be in a specific role in the mining industry. Now, what needs to happen for that guy to change his mind? That we have to do collectively. I think we have to do, it's a concerted effort from everybody involved to change this. And as females, as long as we stop looking at ourselves as a female geologist and rather as a geologist and start doing a more tangible contribution instead of looking at in gender, we will slowly start making the change.
Lauren, you wanted to say something on add value on there? If somebody else wants to add value, we can move on to the next point. Are we good?
Nothing more to add there, Ricardo.
Nothing more to add there as well. The issue around capacity of public institutions, somebody's also commenting on this here and saying that many a times there are provisions in our law as well. It's the administration that's a problem sometimes in terms of enforcing this as well. For example, it's very easy to do these EPL transfers amongst friends, and I also know people that have connections at MME as well. So it's important that we employ people that understand the work that they're doing. Also, the figures that were mentioned by one of the panelists, it's also important. We know of graduates that have worked in public offices because they have connections with family members, even though they are not competent at the work. We need to investigate this at a deeper level as a nation. So another contribution there. So then I really wanted to point that out because it's also one of the issues that you raised here as well. Unfortunately, we don't have the government representation at the forum to be able to respond to that as well. And I think the Bank of Namibia would have also been in a very good position to give some insights on this particular issue as well. But perhaps, are there any views on that, Gilbert, from your side or from Martin?
Martin first. Martin.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think generally, like a lot of, it's not only Namibia, a lot of African countries are grappling with the management of mineral resources in terms of the expertise that we lack. Like So I think it's obviously, like, I think the capacity training is always ongoing. All these trainings, all these conversations are what helps us as a continent to get to a point where we have a better governance and understanding of the industry, from the taxation, from your geological exploration to our mining data. So I think it's just an ongoing thing where people have to constantly go through capacity trainings for us to get to a level where we are confident in the management of our resources, and we are doing it to the best of our abilities, and the benefits that accrue to mining can really develop countries. I think it's something that is to be ongoing continuously.
Well, I think in conclusion, I think just looking at the time as well, we've gone overboard for about 23 minutes. But thank you so much for all of you for being such great sports to make sure to stay for those extra minutes as well. But from what I can gather here, I think we need a deeper conversation going forward. I'm not sure whether perhaps the Resource Watch themselves can organize this in collaboration also with the chamber. And I think that collaboration needs to happen sooner than later, because we really need to investigate the link between initial financial flows and CIG. That connection is what we really need to investigate, because if we are talking about giving what is due to the people of the country, and particularly the communities within which these mining companies operate, then it will be important for us as players in the different sides of the table as we're sitting to be really honest about this as well. Because even if you represent the companies, or whoever you represent, at the end of the day, the people that lose the most are the communities in our different countries. So I would suggest that as a recommendation going forward, that the next engagement we have must focus on that issue of the three taxes, as well as the initial the illicit financial flows, which really is a serious concern, because all the other stuff, the CSR, etc., we can work on. But the real challenge here is the numbers and the funds that deal with the issue around IFF as well. So in conclusion, is there any concluding remarks from any of you before we can close off the session? And I would really want Martin to come in there with the just a brief vote of thanks before we close off the session, if there is no comment from the panelists.
Well, from me, Ricardo, thanks very much. I think it was a pleasure to participate in this and share our views with audience and everybody else. I totally agree with your conclusions. I think, as I alluded to, there's a lot of work to be done. I think let's again convene, and Njemwa is here. We can always take up the issues, drill down deeper, and then organize another conversation. But really, I would like to appeal that the next conversation, please, let's get government to be participant on this, so that we can hear that, because many things have been unanswered and a lot of issues were raised, as government. We cannot answer, on behalf of government. I think that's my plea. Otherwise, a very constructive discussion. Thank you very much from myself and Lauren.
Thank you. Zenzi, I see you've unmuted your mic.
Yeah, no, Ricardo, I just wanted to echo actually also what all of you are saying, is that this was a really good first start at looking, and I want to call it deconstructing the mining industry, because it's really been a debate or in smaller circles, but to put it up in the airwaves and talk about the challenges. We haven't really touched the challenges. We spoke about, as you said, just the tip of the iceberg, but there are many underlying issues. I would have loved, given more time to obviously go into more depth into the different exact challenges that females are facing, but I don't think this was the correct platform for it. But to air that there are challenges and looking at just the numbers, that was for me for now good enough. But I think the next forum to go in depth and to see, maybe even have the banking industry on board, as Steve alluded, and then see what are the lessons we can learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other concluded remarks before I hand over to Martin? Gilbert?
No,
Are you good to go?
I'm fine. Thanks a lot.
You're fine.
Thanks, Ricardo. Okay, fine.
All right, Martin.
Yeah, no, I think thank you so much to all the participants. I think even to speak to the Ministry of Mines and Energy, they have we've been in communication with them, and the response from them has always been positive. They've welcomed the report. I think it's, and to the Bank of Namibia as well, I think it's just a bit unfortunate that they were not able to participate in the webinar, but I know there is a willingness on their end to continuously engage with us. So I am quite positive that going forward, we'll be able to have these very much necessary and robust conversations around the governance of the mineral sector in Namibia. And I think I would like to also thank the Chamber of Mines for availing themselves at such short notice. But I think as the Southern African Resource Watch, we would really, we are keen to take up these issues forward, and we will be in contact with all the key stakeholders to convene something like this in the near future. And we hope that when we come knocking at your door again, the Chamber of Mines, for further research and for fine-tuning this report that we already have, and there will always your door will always be open. Yeah, I think this is the start of a great era of engagement, of shaping the Namibia mining sector, and going forward, we hope this dialogue and this openness and honesty continues. And thank you so much for moderating the session, Ricardo.
Thank you, Martin. Just a final passing comment here as well. Simon Sangwasa saying here, I'm currently a law student, and the report sounds like it's going to be a serious resource for us when we do research as well. Where can we get a hold of it? I think you can get a hold of it on the website of the South African Resource Watch. And thank you so much once again for all the panelists that have joined us. And hopefully, yeah, we're going to come back in and really zoom in, like I was saying, on that issue around the correlation between IFF and CIT as well. So once again, thank you so much to all the panelists, and we hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.